Yeah, of course, there are many changes. I very agree with Ambassador Minarelli that during the last 3 years it was done really much more than 20 plus years before, and Ukraine is moving in the right direction. On the other side, also true is that even more is necessary to do, and it is necessary to say that it was possible to do more, but at the same time, we have to understand that the really situation was really difficult. It is all this legacy of 70 years of communism, then 20 plus years of oligarchic system, then Russian trade war, open war, everything together was really difficult. But let me start, I will return to this, but let me start by, because the title of this panel is Partnership in a Changing World. And maybe we have to speak also about this changing world. Because this is the very important, because world is changing, and in this regard is changing not maybe in the favorable direction, because we have new challenges, we have new problems, especially in the Western world. In the EU countries it is low growth, it is inequality increase, it is new crisis connected with terrorism threat and immigration crisis, which is creating conditions for a new populism, and not for such an enthusiasm for the further enlargement as it was, for instance, in the 90s when Slovakia and other Central European countries entered EU. But what is important, and Ambassador Mignarelli said that the membership is not on the agenda, and I read there some very nice message. Some young man wrote that to be in the integration process without chance to be a member is like to be invited at the Olympic Games without chance to win gold medal. And it is true, but at the same time it is necessary to say that without being inviting, even without possibility to win in these Olympic Games, there will be never chance to win this gold medal in the next Olympic Games. And in this regard, I think that this integration process, economic and political integration, is really one of the most important preconditions for Ukrainian success in future. And this is what I think is the most important, interconnection between reforms, especially but not only economic reforms, and integration process. It is interconnected very closely. And regarding this changing world, I think that I have to say that I'm still optimist, despite of this fatigue from enlargement, despite of these new threats. I'm still optimist because it is, but what is necessary to do also on the EU level is much more enthusiastically and also emotionally fight for EU and for values on which EU is based. Because EU, I'm deeply convinced, is really unique and positive project. And EU is unique and positive because it is based on values like freedom, openness, solidarity, and we have results of this success. Never it was such successful historical period for all European countries who are participating at this project. And me as a person from Slovakia, I can say that, and this is the most important, that EU integration process is a win-win strategy. It is not like it is good for newcomers, but not good for the old members. It is on the contrary. It was positive for both of us. And this is also a very big chance for Ukraine, because Ukrainian membership will be, again, not only good for Ukraine, it will be also very good new incentive for higher economic growth, for new investment, not only for Ukraine, but for whole Europe. It was the story of first and second enlargement, and if we, for instance, look at the neighboring areas in all the member states, like in Austria, in Germany, and others, after enlargement, these regions were developed much quicker than before. A lot of investment which came from Western European countries to Central European countries helped us to have high economic growth, but helped also them. Which means very important for Ukraine now. Maybe common denominator of all necessary reforms and changes is create preconditions for much higher influx of foreign direct investment. But here, very important is to continue in reforms and speeding up reforms. Because Ukraine needs much higher economic growth as today. Yes, we are glad that after recession, very deep recession in 2015, 2014, 2015, which was 17%, last year we had growth, and this year we are expecting also growth around 2.5%. But still it is not enough. Still it is not enough because, for instance, Central European countries still are growing quicker than these 2.5%. And especially this is not enough because Ukraine has much stronger potential for growth. Ukraine still is maybe country with the most far below its potential. Just there are a lot of evidences of this. There are a lot of figures which can show this, but the one which is coming to my mind, for instance, is that Ukraine is on the 22nd place in the world by education, by share of people with tertiary education, 22nd place. But in life expectancy, Ukraine is in 122nd place, which means it is showing how big discrepancy between this is and how big potential Ukraine has. Because really, if reforms will continue, and I'm convinced that they will continue, this potential can be used very quickly. And Ukraine has potential for not only high, but also sustainable economic growth on level about 7-8%. This is very important, not only high, but also sustainable. Because Ukraine in the past had some periods of 2-3 years of high growth that it was unsustainable. Now, because reforms, if reforms will continue, I'm sure that there will be, this potential will be used. And what is the most important in this area, it was mentioned by Mrs. Ambassador, by Mr. Ambassador, it is really reduced space for vested interests. It is really, economists are saying usually that there are two types of economic behavior: rent-seeking behavior and profit-seeking behavior. Profit-seeking behavior is behavior when income is generating on the free and fair competition market. Rent-seeking behavior is when political or economic or political and economic power is misused for generating income. And all reforms, we can say, are to shifting the system from predominantly rent-seeking behavior to predominantly profit-seeking behavior. It's going on, but it's necessary speeding up this. It is necessary open this potential. The most important reforms, fortunately, I think technically it is everything known what to do. Everything is written in all documents which we have, Ukrainian documents, then IMF program, other documents. Of course, it is political challenge how to do it. And it is in every country politically very difficult, which means it is really important, on one side, not to be naive, not to expect that everything can be done in few months or 2-3 years. On the other side, to be dissatisfied and to try to push more for necessary reforms. And I'm very glad that Prime Minister personally and his government identified the most important reform challenges for this year, like the same as it was identified together with IMF and is agreed in memorandum, which means pension reform, land market liberalization, privatization, law enforcement, property right protection, healthcare reform, education reform, and energy sector reform, and other structural reforms. Majority of these reforms have been prepared on the government level. Legislation was passed in the government. Now, hopefully, they will be supported in the parliament and implemented. Because another problem is that it's not important only to pass some new legislation. It is even more important than implement it, and this is also one of weak points of the reform process. But let me conclude that one more remark is regarding this communication, inside and outside communication. It is very, very important, because otherwise populists will take space and will misuse the hardship connected with the changes. I only disagree with one thing what Ambassador Mignarelli said. He said that in Slovakia and Poland, Ukraine is very well known. Even in Slovakia and Poland, Ukraine is not enough well known. And it means that it is really important to have very active communication and promotion what was done, because narrative is much worse. Ukrainian narratives connected with Ukraine are usually worse than the reality. Because for media, it is natural that for media only bad news is news, scandal or some tragedy or something. good news. For instance, reform achievements have to be actively promoted, have to be actively communicating. And government is doing this, but it is doing much, much, much more. And I'm very glad that now in coming days, Prime Minister and government delegation is coming to big investment conference in London to promote and to sell what was done. Let me conclude by saying that despite of difficulties, despite of problems connected with the reform process, I am convinced that Ukraine will be successful and will be able to use this potential. And I'm also, if I look at the public opinion polls, of course there is a big risk or uncertainty connected with this. But I hope that this today even majority of people who are dissatisfied, they are dissatisfied because the reforms are not going so quickly as they expected, and I hope that current government parties, political parties, and maybe new political parties after next election will even speeding up this reform process.